Today I'm going to be talking about the never-ending quests of the video game Backlog. Now, this might look like just a healthy number of video games, but I promise it gets worse because majority of my video game backlog is all digital on the Nintendo Switch 2, and as that means it is stuck behind Nintendo's prison. Now, if I'm being honest, I know that this applies to Steam, this applies to PlayStation, but I solely want to focus on the Nintendo Switch, mostly just because I have the most games on here outside of, Steam. But today I kind of want to dive deep into exactly how do I plan to tackle my backlog, what's my gaming habits like, and exactly what do you do when you have so many games to play and not enough time. And that is, I think, one of the biggest problems here is it's time. You will find a game that's usually on sale, you'll play the game for a little bit, and then you may put it down and never touch it again. And for me, that is actually one of the most clearest things that clearly happens time and time again when it comes to my Nintendo Switch. And I've been having Nintendo Switch games and playing them off and on since 2017 when the original Switch came out. And I kind of want to go over games that I have completed in my backlog and then games that I've touched and games that I have not touched. So first off, we're going to actually start with my physical titles. Obviously, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Ironically, I have finished Breath of the Wild. This is one of those games that when it came out, I touched it for a bit, never touched it again until 2021, 2022, and then I finally sat down and played it, and I actually enjoyed it. Monster Hunter Rise, one of those games where I just touched for a little bit and put down, and I never got back to it. And you'll see that's a common theme here. Xenoblade Chronicles, touched it, got to, I think, chapter 2 or 3, and then, boom, just stopped. Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered, deluxe edition, to be fairly honest with you. This is one of the ones where it's like, I just bought it for the sake of having it. Played it, obviously didn't beat it. Assassin's Creed Shadows, the same. Assassin's Creed is typically a long game, especially the later entries. I bought this because it was on sale. I figured, screw it, I'm going to try it and see how I like it. Pokemon Legends. I'm actually quite through, I'm actually quite far in this game, but I still have yet to finish it. And then I finished the story mode on Assassin's Creed 3. Didn't touch much of the DLC, but we're going to put it right here as kind of finish the main story. Dying Light, played it a bit, never touched it. What else is there? Mario Rabbids. I actually haven't touched this game at all, so I'm going to put it right. I'm going to put the games I completed right here. I'll put the games I haven't finished or touched right here. And then I'm going to put the games that I played, a little bit of it, and then dabbled into right there. Mario Maker, Minecraft. Minecraft's not even a game that I typically say you can quote-unquote finish unless you get to the end game. But it's endless amounts of content. Mario Rabbids, currently playing it. Legend of Zelda Kingdom. Super Mario RPG. Tears of the Kingdom. Splatoon 2. I want to classify that this is one of those titles I come back to, even though there's not quote-unquote an end game. Let's just pretend I guess I finished it, right? I don't know if I even touched the DLC on that. Luigi's Mansion. Splatoon 3, I never touched it. So I am going to put that right here. And then obviously Super Mario Bowser's Fury there. So as you guys can probably see, this is not even all of it. I have more. There's I think Xenoblade Chronicles somewhere around here in the physical format as well. But my point being is I don't want to feel guilty that I don't necessarily finish all these games. But it's also one of those things I want to understand the habit of why do I even bother buying these games? And it's weird because if Nintendo were to offer some sort of, I don't want to say refund policy, but a trade-in policy where I can trade these in for gold coins, RIP gold coins, I think it would be actually kind of a solid move. Maybe reduce the price of a physical game that you might want to play, and then you could, return it when it's done. Because if there's actually one thing I will say about physical game collections over digital, is because you can tangibly hold it, you kind of know what you have. So for me, when it comes to my backlog and how many games I have and how many games I haven't finished, I think if I were to tackle any of the titles here, I would tackle one or up to 3 games in a particular genre. I would pick one platformer, one RPG, and then say maybe one action game. Or if I really wanted to restrict myself, I would just pick one game. And by having a physical library like this, you can kind of get more of an idea as to like, okay, I finished this, move it to the complete pile. And then because you can feel it and you sort of own it, as much as ownership means these days, there's this feeling of completion when you actually, finish it. But the habit that I've had over the course of several years, and this goes for my Steam library, is my library is very much where I will buy a game for a bit. I'll put in maybe, several hours into a game, and then I'll get bored and never touch it again. And there's titles that I definitely want to go back to, but I feel like the only way to really complete this backlog is to intentionally pick a title, uninstall the rest, or just kind of force myself to ignore all the existing over never-ending games that I have and just focus on that one title. And then possibly do maybe a video on it or a streaming session on it. That's the only way that I see myself getting through majority of these titles and actually sitting there to enjoy them. Because yes, I do enjoy them to the extent of what I play, but you kind of want to, when you complete a game, you want a sense of that, wow, that was a really cool story, that the gameplay was fun. And I find it interesting how nowadays in 2026, very few games really capture my attention fully and just be like, okay, this is it. I'm dedicating none of my hours to any of these titles. And I'm going to go into my digital library to kind of show you guys that kind of example here. So one of the last games I actually played on my Nintendo Switch 2 was Resident Evil Requiem. I had got the triple pack where it gets Resident Evil Requiem, Resident Evil 7, and Resident Evil 8. And when I played Resident Evil Requiem, I was entirely hooked. I had probably put close to 30, 40 hours, and this is one of those games that just captivates me. And so it's tough now to find a game that will captivate me from start to finish, and it's okay, I need to get through this. This is not just because it's a hot game, but because I actually thoroughly enjoy the franchise. But then, there's titles that I'll dabble in, or even titles that I will quote-unquote rebuy on one platform. And then there's the justification of just well, I'll get back to it someday. And a lot of titles here that you see are pretty much, some of them are the same from my physical library because they record the physical little icon. But if I went to and shown you some of my digital library, some of the titles like Saints Row, I have finished Saints Row 3. I think for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would love to see if this applies to anybody else, is you really have to be almost in a focused mood or have nothing else kind of deriving or taking away from your attention to just sit down and complete a game. You can't be worried about performance. You can't be worried about the frame rate. You can't be worried about I should play in this title instead. You really have to just sit down and dive into something that you would feel is worth diving into. So, some of the other titles I have is Game Builder Garage is one of those titles. There are these games on here that I don't want to even classify them as completion games, but rather games that you kind of just wind down with. And even though Game Builder Garage is technically not just a game, wind down and make your own games, cool. But you'll see through my list, I have a lot of ones that are indie titles, And a lot of the indie titles that were on here were like on sale for like 99 cents. Some of the ones that go on for like, hey, we're on sale, 99% off, buy me now. And then you're like buying it just to have it. And then obviously, because these are digital only, which, I will say this. The Nintendo Switch was sort of my entry back into Nintendo's ecosystem. Because when I had the GameCube and the N64, yes, those consoles were great, but they didn't quite hit as hard as the Nintendo Switch did for me. I had played a lot of my time on the N64 was when I was a kid, so I had a limited selection. GameCube wasn't necessarily, was like my last Nintendo console that I thoroughly enjoyed. And then when it came to the Wii and Wii U, I barely touched either of those consoles because at that time, I was going towards more of the hardcore gaming with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. But as you see here, like the best way I can tell you, if you have a digital library, one of the best things you can do is you can kind of put games in an incompleted and completed section. So right here, I have a group just for completed sections. I promise you that I've probably completed a few more than I'm here, but a lot of them probably will remain incompleted or games that I've just never touched. But I think the problem with this as well is if I, by some chance, have a whole stack of games that are incomplete, I am going to feel that choice paralysis. I'm going to be like, man, I don't even know what to play. Because typically, when I pick a game, there'll be either an image or a memory or a song or something that will trigger that. Be like, oh yeah, I have that title. I should play it. But I haven't gone through this list of extensive library. I think it's like what? I can't even tell you how many I have. I really can't. I think this list is maybe 200-ish at max. My Steam library is even bigger, and I blame Humble Bundle for that, but I also blame myself. But Humble Bundle is the biggest culprit because Humble Bundle just stacks you with games that you are going to never get to unless you are dedicated to playing video games. And then, as somebody who's definitely got a lot older, video games have become, I want to say, they haven't necessarily took a back step, but they're less of a priority as you get older, right? Like when you have a job, when you have, family, you don't really like the idea of spending all your time in front of the couch or the computer, which is partly why I have derived or I got back into handheld gaming and why my direction of my channel is solely focused on handhelds. Because with handheld gaming, one of the things I love about the Nintendo Switch 2 is the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch Lite, it doesn't matter, is if I power on a game, I could just put it in sleep mode, open it back up, and then it is completely there. So I kind of wanted to do this video as kind of talk about like some of the titles that I've been wanting to get back into is I want to finish Super Mario RPG for sure. And then obviously Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And then the one I'm really going through is I want to go through some of the more RPG games that I have and really like dive deep into like completing one RPG game. And whether I do it on stream or off stream, that is kind of the whole premise of this. Now, if I had to pick here 1 to 2 games that I'm going to complete in the next, I don't want to say 30 days, but if I'm going to have to choose 1 to 2, the ones I definitely feel like I could probably get away with finishing with no issues whatsoever is Pokemon Legends ZA, and I'm probably going to pick something like Luigi's Mansion. I think if I were going to pick the 2 games to play for the next 30 days on my Switch, it would probably be these 2 titles. So that might be where I go first, and I just get through them. I say, okay, nothing else matters in terms of my gaming sphere until I complete these 2 titles on the Switch. Now, I have other consoles. I have the AY and Thor. I have the, the Steam Deck. But I really think that focusing on one handheld at a time and really diving deep into a game, a one title from a particular category is a very healthy way of tackling the backlog. But I would love to hear what you guys think. I don't want to ramble on too much longer. I think this is just more to give you guys an insight of how I feel about the whole backlog situation and my ways of tackling it. I hope this helped. I'd love to hear your guys' suggestions. What games are you currently playing? What do you guys prefer? And, just shoot the shit in the comment section below. I'm Double Pulse, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.